say the great Dennis was saying, what's happening with us?
Very frustrated, yes. And in fact, I think I had a trouble with my cartilage, and I'm sure that was Bestie was the cause of it, because I used to go in for a place and he should have passed the ball, he didn't put it, so I had to turn round, got another place, and he was never going to do it. His dad told a good story in London the other day. He said when Bobby was a bit annoyed when Bestie was on the ball and Bobby was shouting for the ball, and he wouldn't give him it, and Bobby was got to give him a bit of a volley, and he said, "Why didn't you pass the ball, Bestie?" He said, "Bobby, I couldn't." He said, "I knew you were offsides." So I thought, what a great answer. Hey, lovely.
I would usually show people to my strongest side, which was my right-hand side, and very often with lots of centre forwards it worked quite well for me, and then I get my body out of the way and I clip the ball away. But when I tried to do that with George, with his balance, he immediately tacked my opposite shoulder. So instead of me getting him into the position I wanted, he was twisting and turning me. So when he went there, then he would go to the and you would finish up running backwards, twisting, try to get him into position, but he was getting you into the position. And sometimes you'd fall over. I mean, he just went straight at you.
But I always feel that if you're going to isolate one quality that was quite unbelievable in George Best, it was the balance. He did seem to defy gravity at times. When he was dribbling through, defenders would seem to have got the ball off him, and then George somehow would recover it, and he would use the tackle as part of the dribble. He would seem to be playing the ball off people, and he would carry on, and that, I think, was all related to this supernatural balance. I used to say that if Isaac Newton had seen George, he would just have eaten the apple. He wouldn't have bothered with all that stuff about gravity, because George just made a nonsense of it.
Not just defying gravity, but, according to Pat Crerand, he could leave defenders with twisted blood. It's the kind of stuff the fans had begun to love, and some of them saw a spin-off effect.
It makes you proud to say you're from here. It's for years that whenever I went over, first started out in London, there was this notion that when you're from the south, you've got this lilting accent, and you've got Joyce and Ulysses under your arm and a pint of Guinness, and they're the storytellers, and we're the guys with the balaclavas who tell you you have 15 minutes to get out. And one of the small diamonds in the dirt was George Best. And as time went on, you realised that you could hold your head up. And, you know, we were as good, if not better, than anybody else.
I always remember bringing my son to matches and saying to my oldest boy, Declan, and saying to him, "Son, you know, I used to watch George Best, but I wasn't really sure of what I was looking at. I knew he was good, I just didn't know how good then. And you're watching Eric Cantona now. Remember today you saw Eric Cantona play, and probably there only have been two players that I have ever seen that have made the hair stand up on the back of my neck, and one was Eric Cantona and the other was George Best."
People in that generation wanted to be George Best. People in the modern generation would always want to be Eric Cantona with a shirt up, rather than want to be Alan Shearer. You know, Shearer might have been a good player, and other players in George's era are good players, but you know, you want to be George Best.
After the '68 team won the European Cup, which was a fantastic side, a lot of people said that they should have started rebuilding that side. You know, players were getting on a little bit. Dennis, Bobby, Paddy, all the main players, they were getting to the end of their career, and maybe, you know, George thought that it should have been rebuilt.
I was getting old, Bobby was getting old, Billy Phillips had gone. Because a lot of us getting old and sort of not being replaced. And I mean, it's like someone saying to now, Roy Keane's gone and we've got to replace him. But where do you get somebody to replace him? Where do you get players like that? Where do you get players like Bobby Charlton? They don't grow on trees. It's impossible. That was the big problem in
George was used to playing with I just think this is part of the problem. George was used to playing with great players. When you play with great players, you're going to win matches and have success. There was no great players there anymore for a long period of time after that.
It had taken Matt Busby 10 years to build the European Cup winning side to lay the ghost of the team that perished in the Munich air disaster. But now it was in decline and difficult days lay ahead.
You've done it all. You've broken every code.
Following the 1968 European Cup victory, George Best was still at his peak. But he was the young star in an ageing side.
Could lose it, it's Best! Georgie Best! Here he goes again! Georgie Best!
George Best got to the top of the league. I mean, I think we were banned around about that time for playing a game. We played a game, I think we played a game at Liverpool against Arsenal, and we played at Stoke against West Brom, and George won both games on his own. Absolutely incredible. But then you can't keep doing that all the time. You're looking for somebody to come in and help you somewhere along the way. And I just don't think the quality of the player that George was used to was available then possibly to come to Manchester United.
There's nothing left.
And a chance for Best, here's the hat-trick. There it is eventually. Here again. Here's Best. Number 4. Georgie Best, just the tiniest touch.
I think it was a disappointment, no doubt, towards the end of his career at Manchester, that they had become a poor team, and he had kept them in the first division, in my opinion, at that time. And George was maybe disappointed, thinking that Man United should have been playing in Europe year in, year out, and his skills weren't being shown because the team was struggling.
Best going through the middle. He's on for 5. There it is. Here's Crerand. Best. Here's the record. There it is.
For 6 years, George Best was United's top scorer. But with the team's growing dependency on his skills came enormous pressure. His behaviour became more erratic, even after the return of Matt Busby as manager in 1970. Best missed training and games. In January 1971, he disappeared for 3 days.
I think we were playing in London and he didn't catch the train. So, you think, well, what's this all about? And then we heard he had been on the drink. So that was really the first time that it all happened.
In fact, towards the end for George, when things weren't going too well at Manchester United and he'd all of the distractions and the pressures off the field, I think it was almost like a haven for George when he was together with the Pat Jenningses, the Alan Hunters, the Derek Dugans, the Eric McMortys, and all of them, with the Northern Ireland team. He was with his own kith and kin. And it was almost like a comfort zone.
There was quite a few occasions whenever we got in the coach towards the end of his career at Manchester, and George wasn't there at 12 o'clock. And then the press would be saying, well, he's at the airport or he's left Manchester, and he would turn up on maybe the Monday night or the Tuesday morning, and we would be absolutely delighted to see him. And if he had turned up 10 minutes, 15 minutes before the match, we would have been still delighted to have him in the team.
We played together on the Saturday, and George said to me, we were going to Hull. My first game was against Spain in Hull, and George said to me, listen, go to the station, 9 o'clock, I'll have the tickets and we'll go down together. And I thought, fantastic. So I went. I was there for about 8:30, and I was hanging on. And I looked at my watch and it was like 2 minutes to 9. So I thought I better get this train. And obviously I got the train, and George wasn't there, but George got caught up with something. I think it was with one of his Miss Worlds, I think he was with. Probably woke up and looked at her and then thought of me, but actually stayed in bed. So I can understand that one.
Despite all the turmoil in his private life, he still managed some crowd-pleasing tricks for his supporters in Northern Ireland.
Oh, Best got a foot in, but Best has got it in, but the whistle had gone.
I mean, if you've seen how quick he got round the back of Gordon Banks to head it into the net, and unfortunately that goal was disallowed on the Saturday, And then he done exactly the same to me the next week, playing for